TFO for short. TFO was founded almost on a whim by Professor Nikhila and myself in June 2020 during the lockdown. It is a group of film scholars, researchers, students, teachers, and anyone passionate about cinema. We are happy that we have been able to sustain this forum thanks to people like you who log in every Saturday to participate in the discussions. It has been our practice to invite people to select and lead the discussion of the chosen film, which we watch in our own time and place. We have also held film festivals such as East European, Iranian, Women's Cinema, and others. We have also held retrospectives of Kelly Reichardt and Adur Gopalakrishnan. This evening's discussion will be led by Abhijeet Randive. Abhijeet teaches and writes about cinema, visual arts, media, and technology. His writings are published in mainstream Marathi newspapers and periodicals. He also works as creative head and member of the selection committee at the Pune International Film Festival. He has edited an art historical biography of the painter V.S. Gaitonde and selected writings of the painter Prabhakar Barve. He has translated L'étranger by Albert Camus from French to Marathi. A translation of The Creative Circuit, a collection of essays on the visual arts by the noted painter and theoretician K.G. Subramanian from English to Marathi, is to be published soon. Welcome, Abhijeet, and over to you.
Thank you, and it's nice to be back here with all you people. And it's great, I think, that you've been able to sustain this activity, even though the lockdown is over and people have resumed their lives and so on. So it's always nice to meet people who are so passionate about cinema and talk to them. So thanks for calling me. So we decided to show and discuss this a film by Carlos Saura because of his recent death. And if we have to show one film, for me it was a big question as to which film to select and which film to talk about, because he has a long career and there's a lot of variety in what he has done. Like, any true genius, he never stuck to just one thing and he never kept doing the same thing again and again. So it was a big dilemma for me as to which film to select, but eventually I decided on this one, which is CRIA CUERVOS, which is from 76. It was shot in 75. It was released in 76 because it stands at a very, very unique period in Spanish history. But before we go to the film, maybe a little bit about the historical context of the film and how or what Saura was doing before that. So Carlos Saura, as you might know, was growing up in a Spain that was marked by the dictatorship of General Franco, and which was quite a long one. In fact, the film was being shot as Franco was about to die, and eventually by the end of 75, I think he died. And Carlos Saura has had he had a long history of disputes with the Franco regime. So he graduated from Madrid's film school, the IIEC it's called, in 1957, and he started teaching there. So the institute was, of course, controlled by the government, and he taught there until 63. But then eventually he was ousted because of his political beliefs. So, to the regime, it was very obvious that he was against Franco, and he was doing many, many things to make sure that people understood that. So one of the interesting things that he did was he was working with a film production company. And that film production company was the co-producer of Louis Buñuel's Viridiana. This is from 61. Some of you might have seen that film. It was, of course, its subject matter is very, very uncomfortable or in your face. It's an in your face criticism of the dictatorship as well as Christianity. So the film was banned, and I guess that was one of the reasons why Even the production company was closed, and even Sora had to leave. Um, so with this kind of history, it was very obvious that I mean, Franco had a very typical of dictatorships. He had a very strict censorship as far as cinema goes, and even other things went. Um, so which meant that if people had to make films in which they had to how do you call it, criticize the regime, it could not be as obvious as what Buñuel had done, because after that, essentially Buñuel couldn't return to Spain, and he had to be in France, and he had to continue making films there. So one big aspect of Sora's filmmaking was a producer called Elias Querejeta, and so he's considered the father of modern Spanish film. And people like Sora are supposed to be, people say that Sora was mentored by him. So was another director, Victor Eris. Some of you might have seen his film called Spirit of the Beehive. So because of the censorship rules, this Kerheta, he kind of developed a certain aesthetic, and which consisted of, he kind of realized that the censors were, although they wanted to catch every instance of the censorship or any criticism of the regime, but there were limits to what they could do, or there were limits to how much they could fathom by watching a film. So he kind of guessed that if there is an obvious dialogue or something very, very obvious appears in the action that seems to go against the dictatorship, or that seems to criticize it, then they will cut that. And in fact, some of Sora's earlier films had to go through that. So some scenes were cut and so on. And so what these people did was kind of not have anything very explicitly political in the dialogue, but the mise-en-scène and the visual language was used in a very roundabout way to make the criticism that they wanted. Now, it's not obviously very, I mean, we can only guess whether they were successful because the censors did not understand what was happening, or there is even a theory. Some people say that the Franco regime itself wanted to make sure that at least some films were sent to film festivals abroad, or to Oscars and other Golden Globes and awards like that, in order to present a somewhat milder version of the dictatorship. So they wanted to show that at least some kind of veiled criticism was allowed, and the regime wasn't as bad as what the people outside were thinking it was. And so it may have even been deliberate. It's hard to say what was the situation today. So that is the background in which Sora made this film. And so coming to the film now, the title itself is based on a Spanish proverb. And the proverb goes something like, if you raise ravens, then they will pluck out, or they will scratch out your eyes. And so in a way, he seems to want to say something about the regime, maybe through that, or maybe, in the whole mother-daughter or father-daughter relationship through the film. So as some of you might know, the main values considered by the dictatorship were church, family, and army. And we can see here that, in a sense, they are the ones that are, all authority figures are kind of shown to be weak, and the protagonist, the little girl, is characterized by the way she tries to deal with her father and what she thinks of her father and so on. So the beginning of the film, of course, is for me, one of my favorite opening sequences of a film. And so you'll notice that the titles go on when we are watching or when we are seeing photographs of the family, and in which we see the girl, we see close-ups of the girl, and the face of the girl itself is, very striking. And then the film starts in that very dimly lit house. Perhaps it is early morning outside, and we see the girl dressed in white, I think, on the top of the stairs, and then she comes down. And these are some of the recurring images that we keep seeing. So this girl on the staircase or coming down or alone in the night in the house and so on. And in this particular case, it's a very striking scene because we hear the lovemaking of the father and some woman. Of course, we don't know at that point who they are, but we hear the sounds of their lovemaking and the dialogue, and slowly we realize that something is wrong there, because the woman says what's happening and the man says that I can't breathe. And then we actually see the woman come out of the bedroom, and then she sees the girl. She's obviously shocked, and then she leaves. And then we see the girl enter the bedroom, where the father is lying dead. And so in a way, this whole sequence, apart from the fact that it's the father, apart from the fact that it's some woman that is obviously not her mother because she has fled the scene, and the father is dead. And then this girl, she coolly goes, takes the glass of milk and goes back to the kitchen and washes it and carefully replaces it, so as not to make it obvious that that was the glass that the father had drunk from. And again, so this is something that is going to repeat. And at that point, we may or may not understand the meaning of that, but it becomes clear later on that the girl thinks that it is her, so she has uh, killed her father. And we see that scene also repeating later on when she offers her grandmother, do you want to die, would you like to die, would you like to would you like me to help die, and so on. And she shows that jar, and which is, I think, at that point that we discover that it's a jar of soda bicarb. And although the grandmother refuses that, but later on, she tries to poison the aunt using the same thing. And obviously, she's unsuccessful because it isn't a poison. But so the whole film, through these repeated motives, such as the girl in the night alone in the house, or the jar of soda, which is supposedly poison, and then, of course, the appearance of the mother. So at this point, we don't even know that the mother is dead. But then it should be fairly obvious to anyone watching the scene that the scene is it's such a mundane scene. And so just following the death of the father, there is a very, very surreal vein to it. And again, we hear the dialogues between the mother and the daughter, which keep repeating later on in the film also. So seemingly very, very mundane things like, aren't you asleep yet? It is quite late. And have you tried counting sheep and things like that? Uh, and so this is one of these strange things with the film, which not only lend the film its aspect of being surreal, but also it's, how do you call it? Um, in a scene, we don't know whether what the girl sees is her memory or whether it's her imagination, or it is, in some sense, uh, some kind of a phantom appearance of the mother. And although there are clues there in the sense that if you watch the scenes with the mother very carefully, then every time the mother appears uh, as the girl's imagination, she's wearing the same dress. And then in the scene where, which is from memory, for example, when the mother is writhing in agony when she's ill, and the nurse, the maid, is tending to her. So in that scene, she's wearing a different dress. But then in the other scenes where she appears in Anna's imagination, she keeps wearing the same dress. And so eventually, if you keep watching the film carefully, you will realize that although there are no transitions to indicate that the fantasy or the imagination scene has started, we do know, having known that the mother's dead, and the fact that she's wearing the same dress, we get to know that okay, so this is from her imagination. Um, so in a way, as the film goes on, uh, we understand a few things, which is that first of all, so the girl, and so this is where the casting becomes really important. Her eyes and her face, it is so evocative of the loss of the mother, that we immediately sense a certain empathy towards the girl. And from her imagination, it's suggested, I guess, that so she's not, for her, the mother's death, perhaps because she's a child, she doesn't quite know how to deal with it, or she hasn't really grasped the idea of the death as such, and which is probably why the mother keeps appearing. And so there are places in the scenes where she understands that the mother's vanished because she's dead, and she's not going to come whenever Anna wants it. So those are the places where she becomes agitated, and she ends up saying nasty things to her aunt, for example, like, "I wish you were dead," and things like that. Of course, apart from the fact that she thinks that she has poisoned her father, uh, through some of the scenes that come either from her memory or from her imagination, or even the play acting that happens with the three sisters, we kind of guess at the domestic life of her mother and her father. So the father is sleeping around. In fact, he's sleeping with the wife of his best friend, which we realize when she appears at the scene where the father is shown dead in his casket, and even later on in that scene where they visit the summer house of this couple. And we also realize slowly that so it's a child who is, how can I say it? So she sees the things around her, and she may not completely understand what's going on between her father and her mother, or her father and his lovers, and so on. But she does understand enough uh, to know or to feel that the cause of her mother's misery is her father. And so, of course, we also understand, based on the way she's being disciplined by the aunt, and even sometimes the way the maid behaves, and so on. That so it's a very, how do you call it? It's a very conservative and puritanical family, and which is kind of typical of that milieu. So we have to understand that the father himself is an army man, and there's a reference that in the Second World War, he's fought along with the Nazis as a part of the Spanish army at that time. So, in a sense, it is, uh, it's a story of the loss of innocence of the child, and so slowly she's come to understand not just her family story, or the story of her father and her mother, but also, in a way, the whole patriarchy around her. And she's sensitive enough to know that there is something wrong with this. And so even her refusal to kiss her father's body. So right from that time, we kind of sense that there is a certain rebellion in her. And then, of course, the desire to kill her father, or the desire to kill her aunt, and all these things. So they indicate that there is a sense of rebellion in her. She senses that there's something wrong with this whole system, and she has to do something about it. Uh, and so in a way, it's a family that is all the three sisters. They're orphans. They're traumatized, and they have witnessed in more or less in different ways because of their ages. They've witnessed the conflicts between their parents. And this also, that tremendously powerful scene where Anna holds the gun to the aunt and her lover. And she says that my father has given me this. So in a way, she's also the victim of the patriarchy, or she's also the victim of the dictatorship, in the sense that so she's grown up in that kind of a family where the father would give his daughters guns, and they are expected to perhaps make use of them. And then, of course, the if you realize that the main characters are essentially all women, and the men are relegated to the background. So the father or the other army man, the husband of his lover, they hardly have any roles per se. And so we have the mother, we have the three daughters, we have the grandmother, who is essentially a relic of the past. So she's perhaps a representative of the old Spain, in the sense that she has all she can do is to uh, think of her memories, look at her past, look at the photographs, and she's not capable of doing anything. She's not capable of saying anything. And the mother and the aunt represent, in a way, the victims of the patriarchy or the victims of the dictatorship. And then it's the daughters who are, in a sense, perhaps, when the dictatorship or when the dictator is on his deathbed, it is perhaps the future that beckons them. And in a way, it depends on whether they can come out of that authoritative, conservative background or not. And of course, the housekeeper, who is so she's loving, but at the same time, she's old-fashioned, and in a way, she reminded me a lot of the kind of old women that appear in Fellini's films, for example, where there is a certain amount of sensuousness, and even she, the way she describes the father's advances towards her, and so on. So even she hasn't been spared, or she has had to resist that. And then the aunt, of course, so she's authoritative. She's trying to maintain some order, and by that very thing, she becomes an implicit toy in the hands of the patriarchy or in the hands of the dictatorship. So even simple things like the girls don't even know how to hold their forks and knives, and she keeps saying that this house is in a mess, and before your summer vacation ends, I need to put everything back in order, and so on. So in that sense, she is also a victim of the patriarchy, and she's also uh, uh, an agent of it. Um, and then, of course, the mother's character is very, very uh, interesting and powerful, especially in the scene where she's writhing in agony, and then she says things like, "It's all a lie. There's nothing. I'm afraid," and all of that. So we sense that she has understood that what she has been, what she has lived, has been a lie, and there is nothing beyond that. She has no future. And then it is through the child's witnessing that agony that we can sense that perhaps the child has a better understanding, or by seeing all this at the age at which she sees it, she is traumatized, but maybe therein lies some hope, because perhaps the mother had no idea what life was going to be like, married to an army man, living under a dictatorship, and so on. So please tell me whenever I should stop.
No, it's okay, Abhijeet. You can
Okay,
carry on.
okay, all right. So the only how to call it, uh, glimmer of hope is when the sisters play, for example, or when they dance to the tune of the song, which was I believe that the song became very popular. The film itself became quite popular after it won an award at Cannes. Outside Spain and even within Spain, it was popular. And so the song became popular, I believe, because of the film. And also, it was a song that was played at Carlos Saura's funeral as well. And even the film's way use of music is very interesting. So we hear the tune which appears at the with the titles, and which eventually it is we see the mother playing the tune on the piano, which is a very again a mournful or a soulful tune. And then the music that is heard by the grandmother, of course, is a piece of old music. And then this tune and the girls' dresses, the way they are dressed in these flowery shirts and denims, and they're dancing to the tune of this kind of a pop song. So all that serves as a reminder that we are in the 70s, we are in Europe, and so all these, or even the posters and the photographs of film stars, etc., that we see on their walls. So it's an indication that there's a whole world outside, and the girls are kind of, it's just that the dictatorship has to end and the girls have to find their freedom. That perhaps the future would be better for them than the mother or her generation. And of course, the father is a representative of the dictatorship and the patriarchy and all that. I find the film structure also very interesting in the sense that the way it plays with the memory and imagination, as I was discussing earlier. And so, normally cinema has a language in which if you transition from the present to the past or to a flashback, etc., there are ways of indicating that, but Sora doesn't do any of that because to him, it's as if the mother is all around Anna, and she keeps coming and going, coming and going. So it's almost as if she's there for Anna and not quite dead. And although by the repetition of the dialogue and the sequences, we do understand that in a way it might be her memories that she's sifting through or what she can remember. And that is why the mother, when she appears, she apparently keeps saying the same things or the similar things. Um, and of course, the other interesting thing is the fact that what we see is not the point of view of Anna from when she was 8 years old and when the father died, but she appears much later, 20 years later or something. I think she says as an adult, and it is Geraldine Chaplin who plays the mother as well as the adult Anna. So in a way, there is some kind of a continuity suggested there. And so even there, he follows the dress code in the sense that, so whenever it is the adult Anna, she's wearing the same gray dress. And that is how, for us, that's the clue that it is the adult Anna and not the mother. And so this blend of the past and the present, of the fantasy and reality, is what I think lends the film its power. And even the locations are quite interesting. So almost the entire film, throughout the film, the sisters are confined to the house. So it's a very very claustrophobic film in which we see the traffic noise and we see the traffic outside in wide shots once in a while, but only for the camera to go back to the house and even the emptied swimming pool. And legend has it that this same house with the empty swimming pool used to be visible from Carlos Sora's bedroom, from his house, from his apartment. And in fact, it was that vision that was the inspiration for the film. So he thought of making this film by seeing that house with the empty swimming pool. So it's also a very evocative image in the sense that maybe the past was wonderful, in which the father was alive and they had a lot of money and the house was grand, and we see the vestiges of that in that empty swimming pool. And of course, we have to also understand that these are very much the dying days of the regime, because people knew that Franco was dying or very ill. And it's also, of course, the characteristic of the bourgeoisie, which was collaborating with the regime, and it reaped the benefits of that. And in some sense, the beneficiaries were people like the father whom we see here. And when the references come that uh, the friend and his wife, they had to sell that summer house later on, because just keeping it up was proving to be very costly, and which is what the adult Anna is telling us. So in a way, that shows that the decadence is set in, and the future is going to be not so rosy for these people. And of course, the ending is very, very, again, something that I find very powerful, because, throughout the film, where we have, with the exception of that visit to the summer house, but where again, they are mostly confined to the house and its surrounding. So in contrast with that, now the girls are dressed for in their school uniforms, and we hear that pop song again, and they are walking out on the streets, and they go to school. So perhaps this whole claustrophobic summer vacation, and which has brought so many painful things to them, it has finally come to an end. And I regard the ending as a very hopeful ending. So although we are uncertain of the future, because at that time people didn't know, even if the dictatorship ended, what was going to happen. So some people were saying that there might be another civil war, and whether democracy would be established or not was itself a question at that time. And so there is some hope, and at the same time some uncertainty. So there was I'll end with a quote from Sora himself. So he says about the film, when he made the film, he says, "We are living through a period of demolition from which something else will emerge. And CRIA CUERVOS deals with this process of destruction and death." So with that, I end my lecture, or whatever you call it. And thank you for listening to me. And now I'm eager to hear what everyone else has to say.
Thank you so much, Abhijeet, for that wonderful, for the really wonderful introduction. You have raised so many issues about the story, the structure, the historical background, and all of it. So it has been a very rich introduction to the film. So it's open now for discussion. Anyone who would like to come in? Maybe I'll begin. I don't know if this is far-fetched, Abhijeet, but for me, it kind of reminded me of Bergman's Cries and Whispers.
Yes, yes. I was actually going to say that.
Yeah,
The maid and the three
the maid
sisters,
and the three sisters and the
and
mansion,
especially,
that huge
right.
house and
Especially when I saw that white cloth in red, the mother's blood, and then the
yes,
mother writhing in agony, it was very, very
yes,
cries and whispers. Yes, yes.
yeah, yeah. So that was one thing. And the other thing was, of course, you have already discussed it, but I thought the entire film had a kind of spectral quality to it, both the child, Anna, suddenly appearing, like you said,
Right,
on the top of the stairs, and almost ghost-like,
right,
dressed in that long white chemise. And and of course the mother, who walks in and out, and as you said, not really in as a ghost. We are, wondering whether she's actually dead or alive, till the time when the oldest child, during while coming down the stairs for the wake of the father, that's when she says, "But mother is dead." So, so those comings and goings of the mother also had that spectral lent that whole spectral quality to the film. So that was something that was very striking about it. And Anna Torrent, I mean, it's just mind blowing, you know, that child, how she acts, that serious face, and then, you know, the slow smile that appears once in a while, and that precociousness of the child, you know, is just written all over her face, and that it just blows your mind, you know. You cannot even imagine how, as a child, she could understand that role and actually portray it that way. I thought that was something remarkable about the film.
Yeah, in fact, Sora has said somewhere that he had her in mind when he wrote the role. Because so some of you might have seen Spirit of the Beehive, which was already released a few years ago, and she plays again the child
She's in it,
main role
yeah.
there. And so Sora had very much written the role for her. So he knew the kind of face and the kind of person she was and the kind of acting that he could get out of her. But yeah, it's a gut wrenching portrayal.
Yes, absolutely. Anyone else would like to come in with any Ajanta? Yes. Ajanta, please go ahead. You just unmuted, Ajanta. Okay. Okay. Anyone else?
Geeta,
Yes,
can I?
yes, sure, Fani Raj. Please go ahead.
No, I should thank Abhijeet because I had not seen Carlos Sora, but in 2022, you see, there was a retro of Sora. So I could see this film on a big screen. That's the first film I had seen of Carlos Sora. And I was not knowing Carlos Sora's filmography. So when Abhijeet was introducing, I was thinking when I saw the film, whatever I got out of the film is correct or not. I was not sure because I knew the Spanish history and the dictatorial regime of Spain and what happened post 1975 and how Spanish cinema changed itself. But I was not knowing about Saura. So I was wondering what I am hearing from Abhijeet, and when Abhijeet narrated the whole history and in connection to how Sora has made this film, I was so much convinced by his arguments and his presentation. Thanks, Abhijeet, for that, because I could understand the film much more better than my first seeing of the film. And I like the way he, I mean, I was not knowing before you explained that so much back history goes into that film and his, censorship of his films. But I think that this is the best way to portray a socio-political history of a region with such a fine essay, and such a melancholy, deeply engraving all the meaning into the visuals, the stunning visuals, and of course that girl uh, portraying that in her face, and that photographs, that recurring images, that photographs, and that mother, grandmother. So all those things are still haunting my mind, watching on a big screen, and I think it's a film to be watched on the big screen because of
Yes, very
the
much so.
frames that we hold there. One of the scenes, unforgettable scenes, is that debauchery of his father, that kissing that maid. Yeah, trying to kiss the maid with a glass in between while she cleaning the glass, and that the debauchery of his father,
Yeah.
that he's in full uniform and expressing that one scene is unforgettable for me to show the patriarchy and the nature of the patriarchy. So the film is full of such frames, and I liked it very much, and I like the interpretations and the meaning of the film what you gave, and that pushes us to watch all of his filmography. Thank you, Abhijeet.
Anyone else would like to come in?
Hello, Geeta. May I? My mic
Yes,
is not. Yeah, yeah. Can you
please,
hear
please,
me? Yeah, yeah. My
please,
mic is
Ajanta.
not. Yeah. So first of all, thanks for such a great choice and a very great introduction. I really wanted to say this because uh, the Spirit of the Beehive is again one of my favorites. And what struck me, because I work on the so-called category of the child, and you also have Pan's Labyrinth. The Spanish masters have explored the richness of the child psyche in a way I think, at least I don't know that we've done in Indian cinema. And the idea of trauma, the repressed memories, all of these films have been read in so many ways. Typically in Indian cinema, our portrayal of the child is somewhat sanitized, no? So what I mean, each of these films, The Spirit of the Beehive, this one, and I was immediately also reminded of Pan's Labyrinth, the interweaving of history and politics, and specifically the foregrounding of the child, is a really, really sort of very impactful. I watched this film before, but I was so happy to see it again. Thank you, and sorry about the technical glitches. Sorry.
Yeah, it's quite funny that you mentioned Pan's Labyrinth. Just last week I was switching my television channels and it was playing on one of the channels, and I had known this before, but having watched this film very recently, and then suddenly watching the child and the army guy there, it reminded me, of course. Guillermo del Toro has, I think, it's in a way he's evoking or paying a tribute to Carlos Sora in Pan's Labyrinth, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And what masterful depiction. So thank
Right.
you very much.
Thank you, Ajanta. Anyone else would like to come in now with a comment or a question? Yes, Nikhila, please go ahead.
Actually, I watched the film only in the course of the afternoon, so I need time to really process what I have watched. I think Abhijeet, your presentation was very helpful in giving me a larger context of the film and things like that. Two things. One, of course, as Ajanta was pointing out, here is a child who is not the innocent child that we would, we often end up seeing, at least on the screen in Indian cinema. So I thought, all the what I found very interesting was the way in which it is an adult who is narrating through the child and what the sensibility of the child and what the child sees and make of it. So it's kind of filtered, I think, whatever is happening through both these aspects. So which gives us, it makes it very chilling. So what the child sees and how the child understands what it sees and is judgmental, evaluative, and how poorly the adults come, across come across through the eyes of this child to us. So I thought that technique too was very, very interesting. As you said, it's very contemporary, without the usual markers and cinematic conventions which, demarcate going back and forth. So the next, almost seamlessly, we move, in terms of time. So in terms of the convention, in terms of the child protagonist through whom we watch the film, watch the events unfold, I thought it's very brilliant. But also the mother. So the trauma of the mother who is kind of now, shut in the house. and the aspiration to be a pianist is long dead. Sorry, she's kind of taking care of the children. So a kind of a bourgeois woman, probably the loneliness of the bourgeois woman within the house. I thought, seen through the eyes, of course, of this child, I thought that came across wonderfully well in the film. Thanks for such a great film and for helping me to make more sense of what I watched. Thank you very much, Abhijeet.
Thank you, Nikhila.
Yeah, in fact, so the mother as well as her sister, their characterizations are very interesting in the sense that so they are victims, and perhaps they don't even realize what they were victims of, or they are victims of, and at the same time, we get a sense that the sister might end up making the same mistakes that the mother has made. And of course, Geraldine Chaplin herself is a very great actress. I think I quite like her. And I forgot to mention that so she was Carlos Saura's partner at the time that this film was made. But at the same time, it's again a very, very apt choice for the kind of role that she's playing.
Yes. Okay, any more comments, questions?
Yeah, I think that we have to look at something that is very Spanish, which is called machismo, right? And it antedates the patriarchy and the idea of looking at it from a feminist point of view and all that, right? So the film actually has this kind of machismo right through it, whether the lady characters or male characters. But also, I would think that a lot of depth is important for the film, because we talk about the death of the hamster, whatever that little pet that is there, right? And she buries it and all those kind of things, which there is some love over there. And at the same time, she refuses to kiss the father's body and all those kind of things. And whether it's because of she giving it the father dying of being poisoned or not, we don't know. I mean, it seems that way at the beginning, right? So that's the little thing I have to say.
Yeah, in fact, we can almost say that death looms over the whole film, almost like a specter or something. Of course, with the obvious death of the mother and the father, but even the grandmother, the way she appears there, as if she's just waiting to die. And then, like you said, even the hamster, and even the house. So there are those with that empty pool and what we see outside. And if we contrast the inside of the house with all the bright garish posters and the traffic and the cars, etc., that we see outside, so it becomes obvious that even the house is dying in some sense. It has no future as such. And which, again, it becomes almost like a metaphor for the dictatorship, because the dictator himself is dying.
Thanks for that.
And of course, you see, like I said in the beginning, Carlos Saura's career changed quite a bit. In fact, the whole Spanish cinema itself changed quite a bit. So once the dictatorship ended and the censorship, I think, ended in 77 or 78. I think that is roughly when the elections were held, democracy came back and all that. And then, there was this whole movement in Spanish cinema, which is that all taboos were broken. Now you could say whatever you wanted to say, as how do you call it, shockingly as you wanted, and so on. And perhaps the best symbol or the best representative of that era is a filmmaker whom maybe many of you have seen his film, Pedro Almodovar. And so you see, right from his earlier films, he was, and this whole machismo that you evoked, that so he was challenging that in ways which were unheard of in the during the dictatorship. And so all that changed Spanish cinema so much that even Sora had to rethink about what he wanted to do. And in fact, the tragedy in some sense is that Sora made many films after that, but to many people outside Spain, Spanish cinema of that period was represented by Almodovar and his flamboyant way of filmmaking. There were other filmmakers also like Bigas Luna, who's again very flamboyant. Um, so in a way, you could say that Sora was somewhat he became a sort of a background figure. And yet he's made some very good films later on, like he's made an adaptation of Blood Bleeding. He's also made a film based on Carmen, but it's not an adaptation of the opera per se. But so in both these films, you actually see a theater troupe rehearsing for the play, and then something happens and so on. But they are again very beautiful films and very different from this one, if you've seen this earlier. And then, of course, in his later phase, he started making these documentaries about Spanish folk dance and folk music. And they're again very beautifully photographed, lovely music, lovely dance, and again, films to be watched on the big screen. So that's why, if one film has to represent Sora, it becomes a very difficult choice.
Any other questions, comments?
But again, Abhijeet, again, the style of filmmaking that I was again thinking about Almodovar and this thing, and this kind of style of filmmaking, which seems to be realistic, but includes the past and present, views the past and present without any hassles. This style of filmmaking, I think it's more political and more rebellious than what Almodovar does. Almodovar may be appealing, but after seeing Sora, I thought the way you make your political statement is this. Because it includes the organic relation of the whole society with a family. So see, I mean, finally the family becomes an arena where which politics is played, and the statements are again and again made at the seed level. So that's why I like the stylization of his film, which is much more politically potent than flamboyant films of Almodovar.
Yes.
Thank you, Faniraj. Anyone else? Sanjay, would you like to say something? Yes, Sanjay. Right. Yeah.
Since memory plays a big role here in the film, I was thinking about through the memories. Recently, even in the novels also, there are several writers who have been trying to make political statements. Like one of them is Annie Ernaux, who got Nobel Prize last year. So how, first of all, you evoke your personal memories in order to connect with others, to the society. So in such a way that the self, the writing of the self becomes a political statement about the society, about the people around you. So the self is connected to the other. And there is also a certain necessity to recount in the memories, like it is the first person, the grown-up person who is remembering her childhood, and she is narrating such traumatic experiences. So it has also a certain therapeutic value, because once, it works as a kind of catharsis that you can forget your negative emotions which have been accumulated through the years. So this film uses certain techniques, certain means in order to evoke memories. And memories have certain functions. And it also shows the nature of memories. So what are the objects, for example, which evoke memories? In opening sequences, we have already seen photographs. Then there is music also, song, tales also, like when the mother is narrating stories. There are certain objects, space, for example, the swimming pool, which is like she has been using, going there and playing. So in a certain way, trying to revive her memories or trying to remember what happened in the past. And in order to deal with those traumatic experiences, and even the character, the grandmother is itself like that character is a repository of the past, that she in a way represents the past. And the nature of memory, of course, which is, is evoking only traumatic experiences. So through all that, the film is trying to represent memories, is trying to represent the past of this little girl, who is now grown up. So memories, in fact, play a big role in this film. And we can see that how through the memories, you can represent a lot. And as you already talked about the Spanish Civil War from 1936 to 1939, and after that, the regime of General Franco. So all that, come into play when we evoke personal memories. So from the personal memory, we go to the collective memories. So that's the beauty of the film, I felt. And thank you very much for an excellent introductions.
Thanks. Yes. In fact, there are certain points in the film when I'm almost reminded of Proust also, because of the very strong relationship with the mother and this whole concept that, the mother comes and at bedtime, she comes and says, "Aren't you feeling sleepy yet? It's quite late and I'll tell you a story." And then the child realizes that the mother's no longer there. And so when the aunt tries to tell the same story, she gets angry because in a way, it's almost like trespassing her memories, that how dare you try to be like my mother in some sense. So in a way, this whole element of mourning or loss and memory and how to deal with the past and what does the past mean to you, or what do your childhood memories mean to you. So certain Proustian elements are there, I think.
Yeah. Thank you, Sanjay, and thank you, Abhijeet, for that response. Anyone else? Ajanta, were you trying to come in?
Geeta, actually, no, but I
Yeah.
do want to make a point, and this is
Yeah, please,
both in
please.
response to Professor Sanjay and Professor Ranadive. So because there's so much been written about the film, and I'm sure everybody knows, and the reference to Proust, right? It's also this kind of a woman searching for lost time. And also this Professor Ranadive will know very well, because he'd been criticized before about his portrayals of women. And exactly as Professor Sanjay was saying, the interlacing of the personal and the political. So for instance, in that very scene, for instance, the lovemaking scene, in the next scene, it's all the dignitaries of Spain who come to visit. So the dramatic overlay, so I'm actually saying this because I at one point did a course on Spanish cinema. It's been an everlasting memory for me. So and I've never seen films that are so powerful. So all of these themes, I think there've been books written about it. Professor probably knows much more than me, but this thing of lost time, and specifically, how does a woman and the Spanish thing of machismo that Rajan talked about, when a woman is trying to negotiate the horrors of patriarchy, so family, state, and church, what happens then? And of course, the great Anna Torrent, as professors mentioned.
Right.
Tarkeshwar, would you like to come in?
No, I've nothing much to add. I think Abhijeet has spoken very well on the film, and also others have contributed in the discussion. I was also thinking in terms of maybe the film is also about the dysfunctional family, and then the ideal family, the conflict between the two within the girl. So what she expects and what it is, there's a conflict. I think that is also well portrayed in the film, apart from patriarchy and then the political statement that comes out when you place the film in the context. So I think the family is also quite interesting, and all the metaphors and dilapidated house and then the empty swimming pool, all these metaphors also point out towards that. You are unable to, there is a facade and you are unable to maintain it. That gets exposed in the process, and the kind of impact it has on the child. The child is also trying to make amends to it, how to put it together. But she is trying to put it together by eliminating people. That is quite interesting, I thought. Thank you for suggesting the film, Abhijeet.
Thanks.
Thank you, Tarkeshwar.
And Abhijeet, and the way I saw this 1973 film and the very recent film, 2022 film by another Spanish, I mean, she has made it in Catalonian language, Alcaraz, Carlos Simones Alcaraz.
Yes, I've seen it.
Young, see, I did the parallels. I mean, I was wondering how that lady could make such a wonderful epochal film, Alcaraz. And after I watched it, because it's a Berliner thing, and in the film festival I watched it, and then I saw, and the next day I saw this Carlos Saura's this one, and then I could make an immediate connect between how to make a visual narrative of an epochal age. I mean, which covers historically so much so.
Yes.
And I was wondering the power of the visuals and telling a novel proportion, epochal proportion in visuals. So I was struck by both Alcaraz and the next, I mean, after say 40 years later, Simone doing it.
Right. And there is this sense that the world that they know, it is about to come to an end. That whole life on the farm and some of their maybe the best lives of their years of their lives are kind of over, and the farming has no future. And so there's also, even in that film, there's this sense of loss, that something's gone forever, and there's this sense of mourning in Alcaraz.
Any more comments, questions? Sony, yes, Rajan, please go ahead.
I would like to go to Sanjay's comment about memory, and I would think that there are a lot of tricks that memory plays with this whole idea of poison, and that poison tin becomes so important, right? And the grandmother doesn't want to die, and she says no, and she understands what the little child is saying, but also the child is very, very sensitive to the grandmother, and you get, that's something that you get in the film, right? So yeah, so the idea of I don't know how to relate it to the Franco regime, right? Because the question is what is truth and what is a lie, and is a lie good or is a lie bad, and all those kind of issues prop up over there.
Yeah, in fact, so the memory plays tricks on us, and therefore, memories are by definition problematic. So we don't know whether what we remember is really what had happened or it is just our interpretation of that. But besides that, I think it's also a very the whole bonding between all the women in the film is also very, very interesting, in the sense that there is always the past that is link between them, because they are always talking about the past. Even the maid is talking about the father and the mother and what happened before and so on. Even the sister is in a way trying to get to terms with that and trying to get to terms with these children, and of course the grandmother. And so the way they bond over all that, so something that they share and something that it's almost like a, what do you call it, a sort of a sisterhood between all of them. I thought that that was a very moving aspect of the film.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Rajan and Abhijeet. Any other, anyone else would like to say something?
Ma'am, may I?
Yes, please, Sahil.
I just noticed one thing in this film, that Sora applies 3 different musical themes to highlight the 3 different generations that are the focus of this work, with perhaps the most outstanding one being Porque Cuervos. I just want to ask a little question, sir, what those chicken legs in the refrigerator were all about. Was it a some symbolism for death?
Yeah, it is these things that Sora leaves, kind of just leaves them there. And I mean, for me, it's that whole film, I was hoping that someone would say something about it. To me, the memory of this film is those yellow chicken legs in the fridge, But it's one of those things that lends the film its real feel. But I also feel that it's sort of the fact that the dictator is dying, the fact that the patriarchy is dying. Somehow it seems to me, it feels connected to that. That it is always there. It is never used. It's an element that remains unused in the film. Nobody talks about those chicken feet, and nobody does anything about them. They're always there in the fridge. We don't know what they're for. So in some sense, it seems to me that it's the regime or the dictatorship which is just there, and nobody knows what its purpose is anymore. And yet at the same time, it's always there. You can't ignore it. Something like that, perhaps.
Another constant in the fridge is the lettuce head, or from which she plucks. So that's
Right.
like a contrast to the dead
Right.
chicken. So
Right.
that is also something that comes across.
So the lettuce serves a purpose, and
Purpose.
the feet, we don't know what they're there for.
Yeah.
But Sora focuses on it in the beginning of the film and the ending of the film. I thought it was quite significant, so that's
Right.
why I asked.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, also this gun that the little child has, that creates so much of tension, at least for the people concerned, right? Because she might shoot any of them off, right? That's really troublesome at one level, and then it's a kind of father's inheritance to the daughter, right? The
Right.
Electra kind
Right.
of thing.
And then it ends up, so this army guy, he just coolly goes to her and says, "Can I see it?" And then he shows that it's not loaded, and this is how it works. So it's a very I don't know how to say it, but uh, it's almost a menacing presence there. That it is, like you said, it's inherited from the father, or that is perhaps the only thing that the father has given them. And the only thing that it can cause is consternation and violence.
Any other comments, questions? Soni, would you like to say something?
No, just enjoying listening.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there are no more questions, comments, we will conclude this session with a big thank you to Abhijeet. And like some of the others, I had also not watched a Sora film. In fact, when the condolence came up on our group, I even sent a message to Nikhila saying that I'm feeling very ignorant. And then I quickly checked up on Google, Carlos Sora and his films, and read about him. So I'm really grateful to Abhijeet personally, as well as on behalf of the group, that you introduced Sora to us and one of his most astonishing films. We will definitely like to watch his other films as well. Thank you very much, Abhijeet, and thanks to all of you for logging in and participating in the discussion. Good
Thank you
night.
for having me, and it's always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Good
Abhijeet.
night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Have a
you
nice
all.
weekend.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.